Okay, let's talk about the percent equation. And you may have noticed some similarities as we are solving these percent problems in the proportion. Each one gave us an equation at the end. So what we're going to talk about today is the rest of this lesson is I can solve percent problems. And in this case, we're going to use an equation to do that. Questions don't change from when we're solving them with proportions. What percent of 80 is 25? I don't know the percent, but I can plug it into the proportion. Of is my 80, is 25, the percent is missing, so I cross multiply. 25 times 100, 8 times x, and then, or 80 times x, sorry, and then I go ahead and divide to find 31 and 25/100%. But let's solve this problem using an equation, and let's see what we've got. So we noticed in the previous problem, I ended up really having a division problem, or a one-step multiplication equation where I had to solve using division. But let's look at this equation that I've written here. The percent, which I don't know, can be multiplied by 80 because this word of, remember we talked earlier that of can also mean percent? Well, let's use that as, of can mean multiply. Let's use that as multiply. So what percent, some percent, of multiplying 80 is 25. So 80 gets multiplied by the percent, is means equals, and 25 is what I should get when I finish this equation. To solve this, I divide by 80, and I'm going to get, in this problem, a decimal, and you can use calculators. How do I turn a decimal to a percent? Well, remember, when we turn a decimal to a percent, we can think of Dr. Pepper method. Decimal to percent, I move the decimal to the right 2 places, and I would get 31 and 25/100%. Let's look at another problem. What number is 30% of 85? 65. So here I've got my multiplication problem, 30% of 65. But in order to do this problem, I do need to turn that percent back into a decimal. So let's look at what it's going to look like. I don't know what number I get, but I know it is, and a lot of times we think of is as equals, 30% turned into a decimal. Of means times, of what? Of 65. So I'm multiplying here. And in this problem, all I need to do is multiply 30 times 65 to get my x, which is 19 and 5/10. And that is what my answer is, right there. That is 19 and 5/10 is 30% of 65. And you can check it using a proportion if you don't believe me. Let's look at another one. One more problem. 40% of what number is 34? Let's look at what we have. I have 40%, but I need to turn that, using Dr. Pepper, from a percent to a decimal, which means I need to take that decimal and move it to the right, and I always move it twice because 100 has 2 zeros. So that gives me 4/10 of, means to multiply. What number? I don't know. Is, means equals, 34. Now I've got a one-step multiplication problem, so I need to divide both sides by 4/10 to get x equals 85. So 40% of 85 is 34. Let's do some more practice. Solve these 3 problems in the work section of your WSQ. When we are done, we are done with this lesson. So you can go back and watch any portion as many times as you need to. You may use a calculator, but I do need to see your equations written out. Okay, so write out the equation that you would use to solve each of these problems in the work section of your WSQ. Show your steps, but you can use a calculator to do any calculations. Don't forget to write a complete summary, and any questions you have or someone else in the class might have in the Q section of your WSQ. Or you can write an extension question that might make other people in the class think more deeply on this subject.